One of the most frequently asked questions I get is if it has to be a metal lid or if a plastic lid is okay. If you're just meeting me, my name is 𝐂𝐎𝐋𝐿 and this is the 𝐂𝐎𝐍𝐍 Legacy, and this is my book, The Zero Waste Produce Guide. My produce tips have been shared all over the world, and I've also had a TED Talk because of it. So I'm able to go grocery shopping once every 3 to 4 weeks and have zero produce waste. One of the things that I do teach is storing things in glass containers after they're washed properly and putting the right lid on the container for the item. Now in our book, there is a master list that has all of the items listed out and what lids need to go on it. Oftentimes in videos, you will hear me say that it needs to be a metal lid. When I say that and clarify it that it has to be a metal lid, that is because it needs to be completely airtight. Things like half a sliced avocado will stay fresh for about a week in a jar with the metal lid. That means there's absolutely no air flowing in between the lid and the glass, and there's no oxidation happening. The same thing is for apples. So you can slice an apple and it will stay fresh for about a week with the metal lid. If you had a plastic lid on that, plastic lids, they might be leak proof, but they are porous and they'll let a little bit of the air flowing, which means that you will get a little bit of oxidation happening between the avocados or the apples, or things like chopped onions. When you have a metal lid on that, it won't make your refrigerator smell, and the chopped onions will stay fresh for about 10 days after you start chopping one. If you had it in a plastic lid, you would easily be able to tell that, yep, there's some airflow happening and my refrigerator smells like onions. Now, when I'm talking about metal lids, I'm normally talking about a 2-piece canning lid, just because that is what I'm used to having most often, and they do have the rubber seal on the inside of it. But you can use any metal lid that has the seal. This one actually has a white seal, so you can't see it as well, but it's still a metal lid that seals completely. And the same thing for like spaghetti sauce that you might be getting at the store. They would have a completely airtight seal on those, and it's totally fine to reuse old jars. When I first started storing things this way, half the things in my fridge were in either old pickle jars or old spaghetti sauce jars. When I'm talking about metal lids also, I don't use these very often, but I know they're more popular in other countries, are the 𝐋𝐿'E style jars that have the glass lid with the rubber seal. As long as this rubber seal on it is good and fresh and not really old where it's cracked and letting airflow, this should be completely airtight and the same as using a metal lid. So you can use this style jar with the glass lid anytime I mentioned using a metal lid. I know these bamboo lids are so pretty, and I actually got some to use, and then I found that they just weren't lasting as long as I'd like. So this is actually a really old one that I've had floating around. The seal is missing. It's just for decoration now. I actually use it in my bathroom for some of my Q-tips. But anyways, this isn't something that I would use to preserve food longer, either in my refrigerator or my pantry. They are beautiful, but just know that this would be the same quality as having the plastic lid as far as air being able to flow in and out of it a little bit. Now, for storing any kind of dairy, you want to make sure that that's also always a metal lid or completely airtight. I will often put things like shredded cheese, cottage cheese, Greek yogurt, even extra milk in a glass jar with a metal lid, and it will extend the life of that item. I actually have some feta cheese in a little jar that's in my refrigerator. It is March currently. That is from last July. So it kind of just cuts off all that air supply and it preserves it for a really long time. Now, plastic lids do have their place in my kitchen, and I use them on things like my Snapware containers. So this lettuce container, which I love because it holds a whole head of lettuce. This is linked in our Amazon storefront, which is in the description, but this will keep lettuce fresh for a month or longer. I use these all the time, and I use Pyrex Snapware glass containers too all of the time. So those are glass on the bottom, and then they have a plastic lid, and that seal, you just want to make sure that is always intact, and then you have a full seal on something in the refrigerator. Now, the one exception to all of this is berries, and I feel like berries actually do better with a glass jar and a plastic lid that isn't sealed all of the way. So I have always washed my berries like this for many, many years, and about 10 years ago when I switched from using plastic containers in my refrigerator and switched it over to glass containers, I realized that my berries were lasting not just a week, but up to 3 weeks for strawberries and 6 to 8 weeks for blueberries. Following the ways that I teach teach in the Zero Waste Produce Guide for the washing instructions, but also having the correct lid on them. So for the berries, they actually do better with a plastic lid that lets a little bit of the airflow, because it lets a little bit of the condensation escape. So mine still have a little piece inside that's supposed to make it airtight. I really don't think it does make it airtight, because there is a difference between using the plastic lid for these and the metal canning lid on my jars. So there are a place for plastic lids, you know, use what you have. But when people are asking if it really needs to be a metal lid, if I'm clarifying it needs to be a metal lid in a video for an item, it really does need to be the metal lid, and that will give you the longest shelf life. So if you choose to use a plastic lid and not a metal lid, or don't have the right lid that you need, just know that it might not last as long as it should last in the refrigerator, or could last if it had the correct lid on it. And I have noticed over the years, I didn't know why I did it, but anytime I slice items, I seem to use a metal lid also. So cucumbers, when I slice them, peppers, when I slice them, I put them in a jar with a metal lid, and then they normally will last that 7 to 10 days after I cut them. We have produce videos for almost all of the produce items that you might be asking about. If you're looking for a specific video, just ask a question in the comments, and we do a really good job of trying to answer every single one of your questions. Make sure, if you haven't watched the strawberries in a jar video yet, that you go watch that one next.